Welcome to Citrin Cooperman's Corner Chats. I'm Peter Katz of Westfair Communications, publisher of the Business Journal and News at Noon, and electronic newsletters to keep you fully informed. On this edition, we're chatting with Eric Casazza. He's the office managing partner for Citrin Cooperman's Carlsbad, California office and managing partner for Citrin Cooperman's digital services practice. We'll be discussing such areas as cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. And Eric, welcome.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be with you and look forward to connecting with you on the segment.
And Eric, in preparing for this, I noticed that you have something like 3 decades of experience leading information and technology organizations, and that you joined Citrin Cooperman as a result of Citrin acquiring the firm FMT Consultants, at which you were CEO. Tell us a bit about what FMT Consultants did and how this works with Citrin Cooperman at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. FMT Consultants have been a leading provider of business systems for over 27 years, really headquartered in Southern California and serving clients and with team members across the United States. And the organization really works across three major platforms, being Salesforce, Microsoft, and Oracle NetSuite. We initially met with Citrin Cooperman in the fall of 2022 and just found that we were very like-minded in value delivery for our clients. Citrin Cooperman really wanted to expand their offerings within the digital services space. And for us, our clients were asking for expanded services and advisory, audit, and tax work as well. So it was really a natural coming together between FMT Consultants and Citrin Cooperman. And it's worked out phenomenally well for for our team members, which first and foremost, we want to make sure both stay engaged and have great career paths and continue to build and develop their skill set. And then also really importantly for our clients on both sides. For the FMT clients, it meant the ability to expand services to them outside of just the core technology services that we were doing to additional advisory services, as well as tax and audit services. And for the Citrin Cooperman client base, it really brought an expanded skill sets of hands-on professionals that can work with them on their technology and their business process needs around those kind of core business system areas.
Suppose that I'm a middle-sized owner of a company, and I have a feeling that I could do a little better in the technology department, better computer systems, perhaps better software to do more work, to take some of the burden off of my employees. And I approached you to help me out. What sort of things would you look for in the way of deficiencies in my current system? And what sort of recommendations could you make?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think in today's day and age, most businesses have 35 plus different business systems. So it becomes a very complicated, interconnected web of all those systems and their processes as well. And usually what we find with organizations is there may be 10 or 12 core areas, whether you think about kind of your accounting systems, your sales systems, your e-commerce systems, your human resources systems, and in all those, they may be fairly kind of advanced in some of them, and they may be fairly rudimentary in others, right? So when we sit down with them, we talk about what does that entire landscape look like, what's important to them, what creates competitive differentiator for them, and how can we help them through that process. And so we look across this digital services maturity model for their business, kind of rate with them where they are right now, where they want to go, where we would recommend they would go, and how we can help them get there. And usually that entails an assessment where we would come on site, we would meet with key stakeholders, we would review their current business systems and platforms, and then we would make recommendations both for what we would call low-hanging fruit of things that can be addressed immediately, as well as kind of short, mid, and long-term goals and projects that need to be undertaken to really get them to that best-in-class state for their business.
How much emphasis do you put on software versus hardware? In other words, if I'm running a business and I have access to all kinds of fancy computers, is that enough to make sense for my business operations?
Well, I mean, these day and age, generally the computer or the hardware is really just the front end for the software, whether that be things like barcode scanners or things like that. A lot of the intelligence and a lot of processing is done in the cloud now. So while certainly the core on-site hardware needs to be sufficient for their processing and what they're doing locally on that client. The bulk of it is really in the cloud now, and that's really where our focus is around those cloud-based systems and ensuring that business processes are enabled through those business systems and they're all integrated together.
What kinds of things can a system that you develop do for a business in practical terms?
Yeah, I mean, the systems and platforms we work with are really the core systems that any organization needs to be successful today. So you think about kind of really the three major domain areas. The first one is really on customer relationship management, and that's on the sales side. How are you interacting with your customers? How are you communicating with them? How are you sending out marketing information? How are you taking orders in? What is their experience like? And how do you see a 360-degree view of what's happening with your customers? So that's one major domain area. Another one is really your accounting and your operations. How are you fulfilling orders? How are you accounting for them? How are you managing your financial reporting, your budgeting, and really managing your business from a financial perspective? And then the third one is what we call cloud platform and productivity. So this is literally your email. It's how you might connect via a video session like this. It's how you might communicate with your team members, where you store your documents, what are the compliance policies around that. So that whole communication, collaboration, and productivity is a third component. So we really work within those three major domains, and there's a lot of auxiliary parts to that, like e-commerce systems, warehouse management systems. Our focus is really looking at the business process. If you took something like in order to cash or procure to pay or record to report, how is that information flowing across your systems in an integrated way, and using analytics so you can predict things and how you can work on the business and not in the business.
Give us an idea of what happens when you and your team members go in to see a new client. How does it begin? What do you do in the way of analyzing what the deficiencies might be? And what kind of recommendations do you start to make early on in the process that might help get the business off to a running start in moving into a new world of computer technology?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. I think, we listened a lot first, right? And look a lot first. I mean, we're very cognizant that we're customer first and technology second. So we don't believe that any single technology platform is the answer for all of our customers. We would understand where they are right now in their growth journey, their size of revenue, their size of team members, if they're manufacturing, if they're importing, where are they doing third-party logistics? What does all that look like? And then what are the current platforms they're using today? What are they paying for those platforms for licensing? What are the pain points they're experiencing? And then based on that, we would start making recommendations. Now, if that recommendation employs changing out a system, we would help them with that system evaluation on what would make sense if they needed to move to a new CRM platform or a new accounting system, or what we would call an ERP platform. We would help them evaluate that based on the options that are out there. And ultimately, if it was one of the platforms that we work with, we would help them license that software and we would take them through a full implementation. I mean, a very common scenario for us is an organization that starts on QuickBooks and they start growing kind of rapidly. And then they find, within a couple of years of their initial journey, depending on how fast they're growing, that QuickBooks is no longer meeting their needs. And they really need to go to more what we would call a emerging small business or a mid-market accounting platform. And we would help them through that journey onto the other side of it. We do find that a lot of organizations, by the time they reach out to us, things are already breaking. It's something that they're already experiencing a significant amount of pain point, and usually it may take a couple months to go through that system transformation, and we want to help them as soon as possible to relieve that burden that they've got.
I know that you've used the term pain point a couple of times. As a consultant and computer expert and someone with, like 30 years of experience under your belt, when you go into businesses, have there been situations where you have seen things that you found absolutely shocking and painful to look at?
Sure. I mean, we've seen organizations that are, $20 million trying to do all their accounting in Excel, right? I mean, for an example. So that's fairly shocking to see something like that. So there's certainly cases where there's opportunities for improvement. Some of those are great opportunities and can really accelerate from, what we call technology debt, or a lot of times people will try to customize or build their own solutions, and they build, what I would call the Winchester mystery house on those solutions that just kind of layers on over time. And it gets to a point where it can become either unsustainable, or they may have one person in their organization or outside their organization that is the only person that understands that system and how to maintain it. And that creates a huge risk for a business if something happens to that individual, because they're really the one that's holding together and piecing together with kind of duct tape and string their core business platform that they're using to run their business.
To what extent do you find that people are aware of the need for cybersecurity? And I bring that up because stories are legend about attacks on computer systems. There's a major healthcare operator that literally was shut down because of a computer attack.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to use a good analogy, about over 20 years ago, we had somebody that broke into our house, and the next day we had an alarm system, right? But by then it was a little bit too late. So I think generally people understand that there's a need for cybersecurity. I don't think that people really understand how to do that the right way in terms of being kind of always on, and how to blend both their internal resources and capabilities with external resources, because it takes a fairly sophisticated level of both policy, procedure, governance, and then ongoing tool set deployment and monitoring to be effective. And it's, cybersecurity is one of those areas that's changing every day. And so it takes somebody that's really vigilant and always on, relative to be able to manage that threat. And certainly you never want, a client to be in a situation where they're a victim of a ransomware attack or things like that as well, because it can be really both debilitating to the business, but it also puts them in a mode where they haven't prepared a plan to react to that as well. So it's something that we certainly think more can be done for most companies. Generally, most mid-market companies are not investing enough in cybersecurity, and it's an area that's getting more and more complicated every day.
Another major buzzword besides cybersecurity is artificial intelligence. Actually, that's two buzzwords, artificial and intelligence. To what extent is artificial intelligence becoming a practical reality for businesses?
I think it is, and it's really just starting on the front wave of that curve, and particularly with the generative AI components. And there's been so much hype over, AI over the past 6 months to a year. And now software producers are starting to deliver on that hype. It's probably going to take about a year for it to catch up, but there's very real tools. We think, Microsoft Copilot is really on the front end of it, of having a very viable, usable tool right now for generative AI within the Microsoft stack of Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And so for organizations, they're sitting around saying, man, we need to start doing something on this AI side that's a very practical way to enable their users to be very productive. Other major software producers, your Salesforce, Microsoft, Oracle, NetSuite, are baking AI tools into the platform, and every release from here on out will have more and more AI functionality within it as well. So it will be something very soon. If organizations are not on board and not starting to move along the AI curve, that they're going to start to be left behind relative to either efficiencies they can gain in AI or interaction and experience that their competitors are having with their customers and vendors as well.
Are you finding that clients are aggressively asking you, how can I use AI to make my business run smoother, to make my people more efficient, to save me money?
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely tools that people can use today. And like I said, on the Microsoft Copilot, those are projects we're working on with customers, and 80% of them are really enablement and training to understand the user base and employees, how they can work differently, right? All of us are just used to a work mode where we open a document and we start creating something ourselves, right? Well, how much more efficient is it to do that in a safe, secure way within AI, to have that document already started for you by just writing a couple sentences or prompts and then modify it from there. And that's just one example when you think about creating charts and graphs and sales proposals and a lot of the things that people do to generate work. A lot of that can really be accelerated by the tools that are out there today.
Computing has had a promise of making life easier and enhancing our ability to do things that were virtually impossible to do before the computer age. Are we on the verge of perhaps increasing our abilities by leaps and bounds at this point?
Well, I think it's as much talk as there has been around AI. I think it's an evolution. It's not a revolution, right? It's going to take place measurably for the coming years. And there's certain people you talk to that will say it will be as big a change as the internet. I don't think we're there yet. We certainly haven't seen that yet, but there's going to be measured change over the coming years. And ultimately, it should make people more efficient in our role. It doesn't mean that people's jobs are necessarily going away. They may shift from one area to another, but for the core team member that's part of an organization, they should be able to be more productive, and they should be able to do things faster than they have in the past as well.
Eric, in your experience out in the field in this area for so many years now, are there particular things that have happened that you have found to be especially satisfying from your own standpoint as a technician, as a person with a scientific orientation, for example?
Yeah, I mean, we're very vested in our clients, and that's what we get excited about. So, we obviously do services and technology consulting, but we've got phenomenal clients that are helping cure cancer, and that's just to name one example. So, for us to be part of their journey and for us to work with them in true partnership, some companies we work with 15, 20 years as our clients and partners, and to see how they've been able to grow and scale and how we've been able to help support just even a part of that is really meaningful for our team members. And that's what gives us joy every day.
How is it that you happen to get into this field? Is it something that you set out to do? Did you have an interest in electronics, say, while you were growing up?
When I was in high school, I had two paths I was looking at, one to be an engineer and one to go into business. I ended up going to school for business administration. And even back then, I didn't know necessarily what I wanted to do, but computers were just starting to take off and be more prolific. The internet was just starting to come about, and I looked and saw what I thought was a positive trend there in the future, and that caused me to get into consulting when I graduated from college.
If I happen to have a business and I'm thinking about upgrading my computer systems, let's say, or trying to find software that would be more efficient and do more for my business, what should I tell you as a consultant about my needs?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we have a very structured process we go through in terms of how we engage with clients, really to maximize their time through that process. And so initially, we meet with them to understand their pain points, where they want to go as an organization. And really, we want to understand the high level of what they're trying to achieve. And really, so we can see the forest through the trees. And then we, in our parlance, we double click down, into the business and understand their current solutions, what they're using and how they're using them. And usually it takes about an hour to work through that process to where we have a decent view of the business and what they're trying to achieve, so we can start making recommendations for them.
What role do you have in training once you, let's say, make a recommendation on a new software package, get it installed, get it up and running? Where do you go? Do you just abandon the client or do you provide hand-holding as necessary?
Training and change management is really critical throughout any kind of new system adoption. And so that's baked into our process. We have a methodology called Digital Services Works. And really throughout an entire engagement, we're doing some initial training for the core project team so they understand the new solution they may be working with. We bring in users as part of the testing process so they can get kind of hands-on keyboard and key in invoices, key in sales orders, right, key in new leads, and do kind of a day in the life. And then we've got formal structured training as well that takes place before any solution go live. In addition to that, we don't go far away. We have an ongoing support offering as well as managed application services offering with 1 hour response. So if a client says, hey, I forgot how to do this, I just need help, doing this, can you fix this issue for me? We're able to engage within an hour and help them immediately with that issue as well.
How unusual is it for a company such as Citrin Cooperman to be able to offer the kinds of sophisticated services that you can provide?
Well, I think there's a variety of providers out there. I think there's some things that certainly differentiates us as an organization. One, I talked about just being vested in our customers, but because we offer multiple solutions from leading providers like Salesforce, Vena, Oracle NetSuite, and Microsoft, we don't just think everything belongs in one solution. We can really take that integrated view of their processes and their systems and make the best recommendations for them. And we're very upfront about saying, hey, there's another solution out there that we don't work with that we think is the right one for you. Let us refer you to somebody else that can help you with that as well. So in addition, just the breadth of what Citrin Cooperman offers and our overall financial advisory, business process outsourcing, valuation services, and audit and tax is really a whole envelope of services to support our clients.
Have there been situations where you've seen dramatic turnarounds, for example, in the processes that a business has been using, or even in the bottom line, where there's some enhancement after a period of time from switching over to a different software system?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we start a project with a client, we talk to them and say, what are really the key performance indicators that you're hoping are going to change dramatically as a result of this? If it's on the sales side, are you hoping to get more net new leads in? Do you want a higher conversion of those leads into opportunities? If it's on the financial side, do you want to close your books from 15 days down to 5 days? Do you want to have higher inventory turns in your business and lower carrying cost of inventory? So we work with them and define those metrics at the start of the project. We make sure as we're working through the project that we're designing both the requirements and the solution to fit that. And then we come back with them and look at that 3, 6, 9 months later to make sure that was achieved. So, depending on where the client is today and their internal processing and efficiency, we can certainly look at that and where they can really drive a lot of value out of the business that more than would create a return on investment for the software solution itself.
If you had a crystal ball, what would you see for the future of, number one, the kind of sophisticated services that you're offering, and number two, the use of computers and technology and the internet and all that we have available nowadays that wasn't available to businesses just a few years ago? What do you foresee for the future?
Well, I think certainly the biggest trend right now is AI, right? And that's the biggest component around automation. It's, on the front side right now, it's around generative AI and content creation, but really around when it gets to more further advanced and being able to replace more things that are just taking a long time to work through right now as well, right? So I think that as organizations think about the types of team members they employ, as well as the types of folks that they work with on a technology, on an in-source and outsource basis, they're going to have to shift that balance to focus more on technology, perhaps in some of the other areas of the business that they have now, because technology is really going to be the driver going forward in a lot of those business processes.
So, Eric, as business people make a transition to use all of the modern technology and advanced things that we have now that we didn't have just a few years ago, are there cautions that people need to be careful of?
Well, I think certainly if they're using AI tools, they need to make sure they're doing that within their organizational confines and firewall to make sure that their data and their information is not going out on the internet. And that's very capable of being done right now with the modern AI tools like Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT for corporate editions. And I think in general, with anything that's being kind of automated, you still want a final level of human review relative to whether that's the content or whether that's the process, right? Not anything by itself should just go on autopilot without a final stage and review by somebody from the human perspective.
And finally, if you could deliver a message to business people out there who maybe have questions about technology and about how to get the most out of their computer systems and about how to make their businesses more efficient, what would you tell them?
Well, at first I'd say don't be afraid. I think a lot of times people get into analysis paralysis mode and they do nothing as a result of that. And their challenges that they have and their pain points just kind of continue to build. So I would say, get started, talk to a valued, trusted, and valued partner that can advise you and help you with your digital transformation, because there really is meaningful business benefit to get out of doing things the right way.
And on that note, Eric Casazza, thank you so much for being with us on this edition of Citrin Cooperman Corner Chats. I'm Peter Katz of Westfair Communications. Thanks very much. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Take care.